watching the Scottish Football Zone with all the build-up and reactions.
And hello, welcome to the Scottish Football Zone. This is the third night in a row and third time lucky for a win, either for Hibs fighting for up against it, or Aberdeen as well. So we'll touch upon these games as well. Delighted to have Ethan back on the show. Again, he's not been on the show for a long time. So I'm happy that you're here, Ethan. And I'm delighted to have Mikey back on the show. And I can't believe that we were talking before the show, Mikey, and you've not been on the show since February. So welcome back.
Yeah, thanks for having me back on. It has been a long time, so yeah, always good to be back on.
Yeah, cool. So we'll do a Euro bit. Stay on until 7:20. Get your comments coming in, and we'll be here and after the games at 10 o'clock as well. Ethan will keep an eye on the team news. Again, I forgot to tell you that, Ethan, before we went on there. But yeah, so if you can keep an eye on the team news tonight, mate, that would be awesome.
Well, I've got the Aberdeen team here now. Obviously,
Okay,
they're starting at 7:30 in Bucharest. Hibs a little bit later at 8 o'clock. But I've got the Aberdeen team here. I believe 5 changes from the first leg made by Jimmy Tillene. So quite a lot. Dimitar Mitov in goals, back 4. Alexander Jensen, Mats Knuster, Jack Milne, and Nicky Devlin. Midfield 3, Graham Shinnie, Ante Palaversa, and Adil Aucic. And then I don't know if this is how it's going to be played really, but it says here front 3 of Dante Polvara and Topi Keskinen either side of Esther Sokler. But I would imagine it's more of a 4-2-3-1 that Jimmy Tillene traditionally plays.
There you go. So that's FCB against Aberdeen. Obviously, the second leg is coming up at 7:30. The aggregate score is 2-each. We'll touch upon the Aberdeen game very soon because Mikey's a high being all the rest go, and I suppose that you want to talk about Hibs as well. But before we get to the game tonight in Warsaw up against it, but you never know what happens, Mikey. But as I said, it's been a while since you've been on. Brilliant to have you back on as well. But I mean, it does show you football's a fun little game sometimes because maybe towards Christmas time, Hibs were just finding their feet. How do you think Hibs are doing so far? From last season to maybe this season?
I think it's been a bit of a transitional period because we have brought in a lot of new players, and I'm very pleased with the way things have started. Kelly aside, I think we've given ourselves a really good account of ourselves in every game that we've played. I mean, even in the European games that we've lost, the Partizan game at home, which obviously we lost on the night, but won on aggregate, and the game against Midtjylland, I was very, very proud of the team. And then even domestically at the start of the season, it's been a real stumbling block for teams in Europe already in the past with the likes of Aberdeen and Hearts. And, to get off to a good start in the league with that win away at Dundee and then to progress in the Premier Sports Cup, it's a very difficult task to do. We've seen that already. And for us to be able to do that is very, very positive signs. There are a couple of sort of potential issues there that we've sort of came across in the early stages, but David Gray's doing a fantastic job, and I'm pretty sure that every fan's right behind him and the vision he's got for the upcoming for the future of the team, because he's definitely moving in a good direction.
Yeah, no, definitely, and also David Gray was talking yesterday. I think they'd done the press conference before they went to Warsaw, and I haven't seen that done for a few times. It's always been the night before the game. But anyway, David Gray was talking about the game. He says it was it was a benefit to have the game off last weekend to get more work into the players, and we've got to focus on the game. We've got everything to play for. It's just half time in the tie. It's going to be a challenging game, but we're looking forward to it. Mikey, if I can ask you as well, do you think it was? Well, you might be in a better position to answer that one after the game. But do you think it was benefit for Hibs to call off the game at the weekend?
Yeah, definitely. I think the fact, especially it was such a difficult place to go in Falkirk, the pitch and the way that they play at home, we've already seen Dundee United struggle there in the opening game of the season. So, I mean, I think for us it's a very positive thing that we got that game to be postponed, because if you look at other leagues across Europe, they do the exact same thing. I think, was it Denmark do it as well, and I think even Poland do it. So it's good. It shows that the SFA are wanting teams from Scotland to do well in Europe, and it's really putting the Scottish teams, the Scottish teams that are in Europe, it's given them a real opportunity to make the very most of it without having such fixture congestion, which is what we've seen previously, and that's what's really sort of slowed teams down in the past, especially Hearts. If you look at the start of last season.
Yeah, and I think every club that the Scottish teams played against in the playoffs this week, apart from FCSB, obviously, who Aberdeen didn't play at the weekend. Kairat Almaty didn't play at the weekend. Club Brugge didn't play at the weekend, and Legia didn't play at the weekend either. And they've not started the league season very well, which might be of a little bit of confidence to Hibs. They sat 8th in the Polish league, although obviously we've seen them last week and they were a good competitor for Hibs at Easter Road. They've lost 2 games to Wisła Płock, who are the league leaders in Poland, and AEK Larnaca, who knocked them out of the Europa League qualifying, and that's why they dropped down. And obviously there isn't a chance for them or Hibs to drop down. They don't have the luxury that Aberdeen do, so it's really important that the Hibs go over there and get a win. And of course it'll be difficult going over there. Legia Warsaw, a massive club in Poland with a massive European pedigree, but Hibs are still well in the tie-in. If they perform as well as they have done at points this season, there's no reason why they can't go over there and cause an upset.
I think as well, Mikey, that if we were doing the show in hindsight, basically, and you were Hibs were getting beat 3-1 or 4-1, you would say, well, maybe Hibs would maybe keep it tight and maybe frustrate them because they're halfway kind of out anyway, as it were. But I mean, Ethan's right. The games go on, the games go alive. It's still 2-1, and you never know if Hibs get a lucky goal or a penalty or free kick in the early minutes of the game. It could make it a bit. It could make it a bit cagey affair for the Warsaw players, but also because it's because they've got some atmosphere over there. If Hibs get the first goal, that will play on to the fans as well,
Oh, 100%. I mean, even if all you need to do is look a couple of weeks ago in the game against Partizan, they're a very sort of intimidating home atmosphere. We went there, and to get that goal and to get their man sent off, it almost sort of nullified that and gave us a real good chance to go at it. And we went and won 2-0 on the night. And then looking back a couple of weeks earlier, we played Midtjylland away, got an early goal through. I mean, it wasn't exactly a fantastic goal. It was a bit of a scrappy one. But, that's all you need at times. And the thing that gives me the most hope is in that first leg, Hibs were very, very good when it came to creating opportunities. It was just taking them, which was the real issue. And unfortunately, you really can't afford to miss those chances at that level. I mean, Josh Mulligan's goal right at the end of that first leg, it's basically given us a lifeline, because I think going over there 2-0 down, you've really got more than a mountain to climb. I mean, it's already going to be a really difficult task, but I think going away from home with a 2-0 deficit it's a very, very difficult task. It's thankless, you could say, but I think that goal that Josh Mulligan scored and the chances that we created in that first leg, it does give a real good bit of hope for the team to go ahead and potentially cause an upset, because realistically Legia Warsaw, they are the favourites for the tie. But I think if we can go over there and take a couple of those chances that we missed last week, then we make a very, very good game of it, I think.
I know that a lot of people said, Ethan, that that the Champions, the Conference League is getting a lot of stick at the moment because it's the bottom competition as well. But I mean, Mike and Hibs fans won't care if they win tonight, and it's. I mean, the way I look at it is it's still a European competition.
Yeah, and that's it exactly. A lot of Celtic, mostly Celtic fans, you would imagine, and possibly some Rangers fans turning their nose up a little bit at going into the Europa League. Obviously, they would have preferred to be in that Champions League draw, which just took place before we started recording. But it's still, the Europa League certainly still a higher level than the Scottish Premiership, and a level to show yourself on the biggest stage. And parts of the Conference League are the same. The financial implications it brings to a club like Hibs is obviously massive, and getting to prove yourself against European clubs, and there will be some big clubs in the Conference League. There'll be some clubs that you probably never heard of. There'll be some clubs smaller than Hibs, but there'll also be some big teams. Obviously, the Crystal Palace look like they will possibly qualify. That would be a massive game if, for example, Hibs were to play a team like that.
And I suppose it's good for. I always speak about this, Mikey, when Celtic and Rangers aren't kind of like involved as well, because it's always good to see other teams in European football, because obviously people associate Scotland with Celtic and Rangers and Celtic, but they never mention Hibs and Hearts and Aberdeen and all the rest of it. And it's good for Hibs as well, because that it's good experience for the supporters, and okay, maybe it could go away to taste the beer over in Warsaw or whatever, but it's also good for the players to not experiencing the beer, hopefully not, but it's good experience playing on that kind of level as well.
Yeah, I think so. It's an experience for the players, that's for sure. I mean, if you look at in Scotland when Hibs travel to Celtic or Rangers, for example, it's almost that similar feeling to when you're in Europe. And obviously when you're playing in Scotland, you only really play them twice away from home, maybe 3 times, or if you're Hibs, then 4 times, because you'd get them in both cups. But I think for these European games, it's not just one for the club to benefit, it's for the fans as well. The away days, the just everything about being in Europe for the fan is a positive, and it obviously is a sign of doing really well. So it really boosts the morale around the club. The only issue that you maybe have that we've seen in the past is that teams that if they do well in Europe, then the sort of negative is that they'll be hindered in the league. But I think for Hibs this year, from what I've seen so far, it's not quite as much of an impact as it's had on the other ones. So for the fans and for the players and for everyone really around the club, it's only a positive thing to be competing in Europe and also doing well domestically. So I think finding that balance is very important, and I also think that that balance has sort of been struck in the early stages. So yeah, I'm very much looking forward to seeing how Hibs do tonight, because it's not a win-win, because obviously you never want to lose, but if you do lose, then we've seen Celtic and Rangers both struggling domestically, and it's almost got that feeling of, if this is to continue, there's a real opportunity for a team outside the Old Firm to possibly bridge that gap between possibly getting into that second place, for example. We've obviously seen that Hearts in the early stages, they look relatively solid. So I think if Hibs go through, it's fantastic, because more European games, and it's obviously that experience. But also, if they are to go out tonight, then the focus can be put on domestically entirely. And I think this is a year, especially if you look at the struggles Rangers have had, to at very least potentially catch up to Rangers and maybe even overtake them. So I think for Hibs, it's a very good situation that they find themselves in at the minute.
Yeah, and another thing is that maybe Scotland as a country can take a little bit of inspiration from Legia Warsaw in Poland, because they had 2 clubs in the quarterfinals of the Conference League last season, and you don't exactly look at Poland as a big nation, a better footballing nation than Scotland. So there's no reason why teams like Hibs and Aberdeen, if they get there into I would say the Conference League more, I think the Europa League would be a really big challenge for Aberdeen if they got there, but it would be brilliant financially and some really big teams in there. But on a competitive level, I think Aberdeen and Hibs best placed in the Conference League, and there's no reason why Hibs can't or Aberdeen can't go on a run in that tournament. Hearts probably should have done a lot better last season. Obviously, disappointingly going out on the last game, losing to the worst team in the competition, which pretty much sums the Scottish, well, not the Scottish clubs, Rangers and Celtic's European campaign up so far, and hopefully Hibs and Aberdeen can shed some positive light on Scottish football.
And I know that we always talk about Hibs Hibs putting on a good performance as well, and hopefully winning through. It's going to be very difficult tonight, but we always forget about the financial situation, and I don't know how much you get for the Conference League, kind of like going through to the league. I don't think it's anywhere near the Europa League, but I mean it's it's still good money, and it's good money for Hibs as well, Mikey.
Yeah, it definitely is. I think that there's always been that constant discussion in Scottish football about the disparity in finances between obviously Celtic and Rangers and the rest, and I think that the Conference League being introduced has almost been a real positive in not bridging that, because I don't think that'll ever happen, but at least giving Hibs and Aberdeen, Hearts, teams like that a chance to be able to sign players that they otherwise wouldn't have been able to. I mean, look at Hibs this summer. They've splashed out big on Thibaut Clegy, and obviously to sign somebody like Chaiwa, who came from the Swiss league. These are signings that they weren't ever happening up until a couple of years ago, and I think that's obviously going to be a real positive for Scottish football, because the higher quality a player, the better the league's going to look overall. And I think that being able to not bridge that gap, but being able to sort of compete game to game with these bigger clubs, I think is a real testament to how beneficial the Conference League has been for Scotland, I think. And yeah, it's one that, although I don't anticipate Hibs to really compete up the sharp end of the Conference League if we are to go through, it's one that I think if Hibs are to get into those group stages, it's or the league phase, sorry, I think it's a real opportunity to obviously make a good amount of money for the club, but also just to boost the Hibs name, basically, to get our name out there a lot more for these players playing in the European leagues, to possibly give them more of an incentive to come to Scotland and to improve Hibs overall. And I think it's a real opportunity to do that, as opposed to getting into the first round of the Europa League qualifiers and getting knocked out by a team that's vastly better than whoever Hibs or whoever it is actually playing.
Yeah, no, exactly. And Ethan, we've been here Tuesday and Wednesday, and it's been very difficult to do these shows as well. But we only got pick me up, as I say, and there's nothing better than two Scottish teams going through. It's going to be very difficult, but you've got to be positive.
Yeah, and regardless of the fact that they're not going to have any Scottish representatives in the Champions League, as you alluded to, having 4 clubs in the league phase across the 2 competitions, Europa League and Conference League, would be a step forward, because I can't remember, maybe you guys might know, but I don't know if we've ever had 4 Scottish clubs in group stage or league phase action. So
No.
yeah, it'll be a massive step in the right direction.
I think it's only been 3. Am I right in saying Celtic and Rangers and Hearts a couple of seasons ago?
Yeah,
but,
and Aberdeen as well, I think.
Aberdeen did. That's right. When Barry Robson was a manager. Yeah. But I suppose, like, it's going to be a big night, Mikey. But also, it's even though, and you would want Hibs still to be in the Conference League when we're back on the show at 10 o'clock, and we do as well. But overall, it's been a very kind of like disappointing week, and obviously Celtic and Rangers. Well, not obviously, but they'll be into the Europa League now, and if they do, we'll win that. But I still think it overshadows what they failed to do in the Champions League.
Yeah, I mean, it's no secret that this hasn't really been the best week for Scottish football in terms of results, but I think that it's a real opportunity for Aberdeen and for Hibs to sort of, I guess, maybe shine a little bit of a light on the Scottish game after what's been a very, very negative week overall, because as much as there's always going to be those sort of jibes from teams at Celtic and Rangers getting beat, it's never really a benefit for the Scottish game overall when results like that happen, especially the one with Rangers last night, because I mean Celtic losing was obviously unacceptable, but I think to lose in the manner that Rangers did was really, really, it was a real hindrance to the Scottish game. So I think us having these more representatives actually for the Scottish game, it is a benefit as well, because obviously a couple of years ago it'd be if Celtic get beat in Europe, then that was, or if Celtic and Rangers both got beat, then that was it. But now there's 3 or 4 teams representing the country at one time, so it's good. But I think that overall, if Hibs and Aberdeen lose tonight, it's only going to put more of a negative spin on the Scottish game. So it's got to be a real big night for Scottish football tonight. I think that's pretty fair to say.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And the Hibs team is in. I don't know if you've seen it yet, Mikey, or
no, not yet.
Do you want to go and have a look at it and read it out? I've got it here, but I just thought you would obviously.
If you'd be fine reading it out, because
I'll read it out and then you give your thoughts. So it's Smith and goals. The lineups by number order, frustratingly on Hibs's social media, but I'll read it out by. Oh, actually, my Twitter is bugging out, and now I don't have it. Okay, this is great. Let me see. Technical difficulties.
We'll come back.
Oh, there we go. I've got it now.
Well, there you go.
Right, so Smith and goals. Obviously, it's going to be a sort of back 4/5. Cadden, Abita, Bashiri, Ahora, Cadden, Levitt, Mulligan, McGrath, and then Bowie and Boyle. So a strong team from Hibs. But I think I noticed someone saying that Josh Campbell's not even on the bench, so might be an injury there as to why he's not in the squad.
I'm actually quite surprised that I hadn't heard anything, but as much as I love Josh Campbell, he's not exactly lived up to the performances that he'd be expected of him. So it'll be good to see somebody else in the team tonight. I think it's going to be more of what we played last season. Based off that, I think it'll be more of a 3-4-1-2 rather than a 3-4-2-1 or a 3-4-3, because usually it'd be 2 attacking midfielders in there, but to have Boyle and Bowie up top together, I think that's what worked best for Hibs last season. I think that's what I would prefer to see personally, and I think playing the 3-4-2-1 it's not been as effective as it was last year with the one attacking midfielder behind the 2 up front. So if we are to play that team, I'd like to see McGrath behind the 2 of them rather than it probably being Boyle and McGrath behind Bowie. So if there's one thing from that team I'd like to see, it definitely be like that.
Yeah, so we will see on the Hibs game, Mikey, will we all across the Hibs game and hopefully not behind the couch as well, and he'll come back and give us his match report as it were on the game, because it's very frustrating, Mikey, as well, because the reasons why that me and Ethan is watching it, it's a big game for the Hibs fans and Scottish football, but again, it's against a paper wall. Basically, you've got to pay to watch that game.
Yeah, it is, and unfortunately, I suppose it's gone are the days where you could watch European actual major qualifiers free, apart from when it's obviously the odd game gets shown. But I think it is a real shame that we're having to pay as much as we are for a game that we're not actually going to see. But unfortunately, that's just the way things have been. So yes, there's nothing we can really do about that. So yeah, as much as it's a shame, there's not much we can really do about it.
Yeah, I would agree.
Okay, let's
as
go on.
unfortunate.
Yeah, sorry, Ethan.
No, I was just going to say, it is
let's go.
unfortunate the game isn't on the telly tonight.
Yeah, I mean, it is a big game for the Hibs fans, and I suppose the rest of Scottish football, because like you want the Scottish teams to do well in Europe, and people can't see it because it's against you've got to pay to see it, but it's right. Well, it's right, but it's we're kind of used to getting Scottish football, because if you want to see like the Scottish Cup or the League Cup or whatever, it's on Premier Sports, obviously, because that's on the channel that sponsors it as well. But I mean, the likes of the but yeah, as Mikey said, we just have to get on with it and stop mourning as well. So that's the Hibs game kicking off at 8:00. A game kicking off at 7:30. That's not on pay-per-view. That's on BBC. BBC Scotland channel, I think it's. Aberdeen is away to FCSB tonight, and 2-each from the first leg. And Ethan, I only saw the second half, and obviously you can fill me in the first half. But I mean, I thought Aberdeen done well. They done well to get a draw out the game, and a bit like the Hibs game, it's still alive at 2-each.
Yeah, exactly that. And I know that probably looking at it, not the best result, and on the face of it, FCSB got out to 10 men in the first half, and you're only 1-0 down at the time, and then they get a draw out the game. But it would have been very easy for the Aberdeen players to sort of shy away or collapse after that sucker punch at the start of the second half. When they are playing against 10 men and they concede 2 really poor goals. Aberdeen conceded defensively. But yeah, as you said, they fought their way back into the game and deserved their 2 goals in the end. And Sokler's header gives them real confidence and momentum heading to Bucharest. Obviously, they're going to be playing against 11 men, you would imagine, this week, unless it's another incident with Hibs and Partizan Belgrade. But FCSB haven't been very good this season on the whole, and I know Aberdeen haven't fully convinced the supporters, and Jimmy Tilleen's made a lot of changes, 5, I believe, to the starting 11. So, yeah, there's definitely a chance there for Aberdeen, and it'll be a shoot-off and probably a hostile atmosphere, because the FCSB fans, a club of their size, will expect them to get into the Europa League. A little bit less expectation on Aberdeen going out there. And coupling that with FCSB's start to their domestic season, where they... I've got it here actually. They sit 13th place in the remaining league with 16 teams in it, and they were the team that played at the weekend. They lost 2-0 at home to newly promoted team FC Arges Peteste. So they've only won 5 of their opening 15 matches of the season. They played 15 matches this season, which is in a lot of contrast to the Scottish clubs, and they've only kept 1 clean sheet in those 15 matches. So you have to be confident that Aberdeen can go over there and get at least a goal, and if they get a goal, then there's always a chance that they can maybe win on the night and go through, and it would be a brilliant result for them.
Mikey, do you think it's a bit unfair in terms of like teams well into this season, and we've only played about 3 or 4 games, and that's including all the Scottish teams that's in Europe this week? Or do you think, obviously we have to go on with it, but do you think there's an unfair advantage there a wee bit?
No, I don't think so. I think that you can take positives from that, obviously, or negatives from our perspective of them being able to have more time to gel together. But also they've played a lot more games. There's going to be a lot more tired legs. If you can kind of take it either which way. So I don't think there's any unfair advantages. I think that if that was to be put into discussion, it'd merely be an excuse, because I think that you're looking at Scotland, obviously. There's not really that much of a summer break in Scotland. There's only around about a month. So I think that you can basically give or take whether it has any impact. And I don't think that if Aberdeen were to lose tonight, then the manager or any of the players would be jumping to that excuse. So I don't think you can really use that as a fair argument. But I think that it potentially gives them a slight edge in terms of the fact that obviously they've played longer together, but obviously with the way that their season's gone so far, their morale's not exactly going to be very high. So you could obviously see that as a negative, that they've played so many games and they're struggling so much. So yeah, I think it sort of swings and roundabouts. There's no real way of there's not really much of a disparity there between them. I certainly don't think there's any real unfair advantage.
Yeah, I would agree with that, although it does propose an interesting sort of dynamic when a team's sort of 10 games ahead of the other team. But as Mikey said there, the team morale at FCSB is not exactly going to be brilliant at the minute, and they will have played more games, so there'll be a wee bit. I don't know what the perfect time in a football season of freshness is, but I'd imagine it's around sort of 10 games maybe. And that's the thing with Celtic when they were playing against Kairat. Kairat are complete opposite side of the spectrum there. I think 3 or 4 games away from their league season finishing, whereas Celtic are only 3 or 4 league games into their season. And when Kairat Almaty actually go into the Champions League, they were drawn at a home tie against Real Madrid, funnily enough. They'll not be playing in their season at all, so they'll be just playing Champions League games, which I think will be a disadvantage to them at the time. But yeah, as Mikey said, you can look at it both ways. But Aberdeen, I think I'm really confident can go over there and have a chance because of FCSB's recent form.
And of course, Aberdeen's got that safety net as well, Ethan, but they wouldn't want to kind of like drop out into the Conference League. They would want to play against the best in the Europa League. And by the way, there are good teams in the Conference League as well, but like, that the Conference League does take a lot of battling at times. But I mean, you just have to look at West Ham a few seasons ago, Ethan, when the first I can't remember if it was the first cup, the European Cup, but I mean back to what I was saying earlier. I mean, the West Ham fans wouldn't be caring about that. It's still a kind of like European Cup.
Yeah, exactly that. And all the teams that are in the European competitions, I think it's 104 in total across the 3 competitions, because the Conference League weirdly has less teams than the Europa and Champions League. But they're all there by merit. They're all good sides that have been some of the best in their domestic divisions, so they've all got something to prove. I know I keep referencing to them, but even Kairat Almaty, we sort of looked as a write-off that Celtic would just run right over the top of them, and they obviously came with a game plan, and it worked out brilliantly. Obviously, Celtic were terrible across the 2 games, but yeah, Jimmy Tilleen will be looking to get into the Europa League, because I think financially the jump between that and the Conference League is massive and could make a massive difference to a club like Aberdeen. And I think he even said that in his pre-match comments. The Europa League is our target. People talk about a safety net, but we don't think in those terms. We want to be in the Europa League, and we are going to give everything to arrive there. As a manager, player and club, you always want to play against the best teams and also believe in yourself. Find ways to win games, be the best version of yourself. He was also talking about how when he managed Elfsborg in Sweden in his last job before coming to Aberdeen, he had a few playoff qualifiers and these sort of competitions. He had a Conference League playoff, and he travelled to Rotterdam to play against Feyenoord and was beat 5-0. So that's something he won't want to recreate tonight, and hopefully he doesn't. And I have a lot of confidence, as I said, that Aberdeen can go over there and get a result, and likewise the same for Hibs.
Yeah, no, exactly. And I suppose like the Aberdeen hasn't, started the season in the best run of form, Mikey. But I mean, I think Jimmy Tillin has got a bit of credit in the bank, not only because, he won the Scottish Cup, but everybody was putting the kettle on for Celtic to win the treble, and that kind of like didn't happen. And you could say that Celtic were poor that day or indifferent or whatever, but it doesn't matter. They still beat them on the day.
Exactly, and I think that obviously you say with credit in the bank. I think it's more of a sort of wary one with Aberdeen, because if you look at their actual form since November, they're right down towards the bottom. So there has to be a concern there from Aberdeen fans. I mean, I'm not going to say papering over the cracks, because it was obviously a fantastic achievement to win the Scottish Cup, but it does mask quite a few of those issues that have been seeping in for a long time now. And I think that there is a chance this season that if there's a real bad run of form again, that there could be pressure on Jimmy Tillin. But I mean, I think what really goes understated in these competitions is it's a one-off game. Like for example, the Scottish Cup final. I mean, you can look on paper that Partizan are a better side than Hibs on paper, but Hibs over the course of 2 legs went there and had a game plan and won. You look at Kairat, they were massive underdogs against Celtic, and obviously they went and done it. So you never know what can happen in these ties. It's not a one-off game. You could say it's a two-off game, but whatever. It's one of those where it lies separate to the rest of the season. So I think form's important, but it's not everything going into it. Certainly not as important as it is domestically when it's a league game, for example. So yeah, I think it's one that Aberdeen can take a lot of positives into, because they're in similar positions and the morale's not too high. But as I said, they both need to go into that game as a one-off, and form can't come into it for either side, because realistically they don't have much form to fall back on, either of them.
There you go, Mikey. There's a lot of Edinburgh trying to get behind Hibs tonight. Hopefully, Graham's in the chat asking you, Mikey, about the new striker.
I mean, it's been an odd one, because I think when he's played very low minutes, except from that game against Livingston in the Cup, and I thought in that game he was fantastic. He made himself put himself about, made himself a hassle for the defenders, and I think when he has come on, that's the one thing I'd say David Gray's really gotten wrong at the stage of this season, because when he's coming on, it's usually 75th minute or later, and I think that he's basically been brought in as that European striker, because he's been brought in from a European league, and that's a lot more representative of European football than if he was to get brought in from, for example, a team down south or a team in Scotland. So I'm very surprised at that, and I think the same with Ellie Johan, because he's another player that I think's really suited to the European game. And if I was to have any real issue with what David Gray's done at the start of this season, it has been basically keeping the same team domestically to European, which I don't think you can necessarily do. And with Clegy, I mean, it's a lot of money for him to be sat on the bench. So, I mean, I don't know the ins and outs. I don't know if there's possibly been a training issue, or if he's not fully up to fitness yet to compete week in, week out. But I think if he isn't in the team within the next sort of few weeks, or we don't get any sort of proper confirmation of what's going on, then there will be a couple of questions being asked. But yeah, I think it's still early days for him. I mean, when he has played, I have been relatively impressed by him, but minutes wise, I'm quite surprised that he hasn't been in the team as much as I would have thought. And I think certainly tonight, with the amount of football that Martin Boyle's played, he's played pretty much every game. I would have thought that a game away from home in Europe, playing him alongside Kieran Bowie, I don't think there can really be any negatives from that, especially when it's such a chance to impress for him. I mean, he did it at Livingston, which, I mean, there's obviously a bit of a step up between Livingston and Legia Warsaw, but I think he's shown signs there that he's a very capable striker, and as I said, he's a lot of money to be sat on that bench.
Yeah, and I think on the flip side, you could look at it as Hibs being in a really good position in that area of the pitch, that he can't, obviously record signing, and he can't even sort of break into that starting 11. Obviously, Kieran Bowie's been immense this season, and Martin Boyle, a club legend at Hibs. So, yeah, as sort of surprising, as you said, the lack of minutes that he's played for the price that Hibs have obviously brought him in for. But I think he will probably play his part across the course of the season as he did at Livingston, as you said. And I think, like I said, for Aberdeen, I'm confident in Hibs that if you look at the 4 goals, both of them conceded across the first leg. Aberdeen, certainly both goals really preventable. Okay, the second leg goal was a bit of quality, really nice ball from and Sam to the back post and a good finish. The penalty, a little bit unfortunate, I would say, for Rocky Bashiri. I don't know, Mikey, what your thoughts were on the penalty.
No, you don't want to know what my thoughts were at the time, but yeah, looking back at it, I can see why it's given. I don't think it was. And then if you actually look in the build up to the second goal, this is by no means me making any excuses, because realistically they deserve to win on the night with the play that they had. But if you look at the second goal back about 30 seconds prior, there was a ball up to Kieran Bowie who was running through, and he got basically kicked and pushed over at the same time, and there was nothing given. So I think there was some very questionable decisions, I think, to say the least, in that game. But then again, I mean, there could have been 3 or 4 times when Legia had a real bit of quality, got through and missed a shot that they should have scored. So again, it's one of those where you can make excuses here or there, but I think there was the game was probably the deserved outcome in the end. But I think if you look at both goals, they were preventable from a Hibs perspective, but also preventable from a letter of the law perspective as well. So I think it was a bit of a weird one to look back on.
Yeah, I would agree. And if Aberdeen can Aberdeen and Hibs can keep themselves a little bit tighter and nick a goal at the other end, then it might be good enough for both of them on the night. Obviously, Hibs would have to go through penalties if that was to be the case, but you never know.
What do you think the game plan would be for the both teams? Scottish teams tonight. Ethan, do you think that they'll sit in for the first 15 minutes, or do you think they'll come out all guns blazing? Bearing in mind, I said that about Rangers last night. I don't know if you remember, Ethan. I said to Alex, do you think Rangers will sit in? But obviously they didn't have a chance to sit in as well. But yeah, so what do you think the game plan will be from Hibs and Aberdeen tonight?
Well, I think Aberdeen, more of the same from last week. I think Aberdeen, they started the game really well. I think it was the Aberdeen game. I missed the first, I think, maybe half an hour of the Aberdeen game last week. And I was listening to it on the radio, and the commentator on the BBC, I can't remember who it was, said that it was all Aberdeen. And then right as the tune to him next, he was going, FCSB have scored. And that was kind of the game for FCSB. They just took their chances really well. Aberdeen had 28 shots. And I know they're playing against 10 men, so they're going to have the lion's share of possession as they did and the more shots. But I think Aberdeen just need to be a little bit defensively more switched on and take their chances when they come their way. And they've got a real good chance going over there. Obviously, it's going to be difficult, FCSB at their home stadium. And for Hibs, I didn't watch that game, so Mikey can probably provide more context, and I'm sure he has already. But I don't know how Hibs would maybe line up, because it's difficult, because they obviously need to score on the night. It's different scenario for Aberdeen. There will need to be a point where Hibs go and chase the game if there's still 1 goal down with maybe 10 minutes left, whereas Aberdeen will probably play very reserved the whole night if it takes them to extra time and maybe penalties, if that's the way that... Of course, they won't play for a draw, but yeah, there's ways to play, and Aberdeen don't need to go gun-ho, and neither do Hibs, but at one point maybe they will, depending on what the scoreline is.
Mikey, from a Hibs point of view, what are you hoping? Do you think that they'll come out all out attack, or do you think that the game plan would be to sit in and make a wee set play or make a goal early?
Well, I can tell you as a matter of fact, in all 3 of the away games in Europe and the first 15 minutes of the Legia home game, Hibs came out all guns blazing, and they obviously scored against Midtjylland early, put a lot of pressure on Partizan quite early, and obviously against Legia at home last week. I mean, the first 5-10 minutes were an absolute onslaught from Hibs, because if you looked, I don't know if you actually saw the early stages of the game, but Hibs were all over them from the first second. There was constant mistakes at the back from Legia, and I was actually sitting there thinking that Hibs could have been 2 or 3 up within the first 10-15 minutes, because, I mean, I don't know if it was just Hibs catching Legia Warsaw cold, but if you actually look at it back, they were misplacing passes. The goalkeeper kept passing it out of play, and Hibs actually manufactured 2 or 3 really good opportunities that either broke down or we just had a shot and it went wide. So I think it'll be much of the same, because Hibs are chasing the game, and I think if Legia start the way that they did last week, obviously today, then I think Hibs have a really good opportunity of getting an early goal. And then if Hibs do get that early goal, then I think they can be a bit more conservative, because if you've got a 1-0 away, if you've got a 1-0 away lead, you can hold on to that and possibly frustrate the home crowd more than you would if you were 2-1 down away from home and you came to the home leg and got an early goal. The fans would be more behind you to go and get that second. But when you're away from home, I think if you go 1-0 up, the longer you can frustrate that home crowd, the better it'll be for Hibs. So I think there's a lot of ways that Hibs can play this tonight, and I'd put money on Hibs definitely coming out the blocks fast and really trying to get that early goal. Obviously, the risk you then run is them going up the other end and scoring, and then the tie's not dead, but you've basically got more of a mountain to climb than you would have anyway. So I think Hibs will go a lot more risk and reward in the first sort of 10-15 minutes of the tie. And if they get that early goal, then it will make it a very interesting night from Hibs, because then Hibs will have something to hold on to, and with any luck, it'll get the home fans on the team's back. And I think from then, Hibs almost have more of an advantage than they would have if they were at home and got the early goal.
I suppose as well that Ethan, that's a difference between 2-0 and 2-1, because if it was 2-0, Hibs would have to be up and at it right from the first whistle, but it's 2-1. But in saying that, Hibs has got to shut the back door as well at the same time.
Yeah, and I think Hibs can take a lot of encouragement from their previous away performances and against Midtjylland and Partizan. Obviously, Midtjylland, they went ahead early, got that goal through Jamie McGrath, the free kick, and then they held on for a while. And despite Midtjylland getting the equaliser on the night, that was a really good scoreline to take back to Easter Road, and obviously even better in Belgrade against Partizan. So I think David Gray will have confidence in his players that they can go over there and express themselves and have a really good performance on the night. Aberdeen were obviously a little bit less aware because this is their first away tie of the season in Europe. So, yeah, you're a bit unsure on them. But, yeah, I think there's definitely both teams are still in the game, and that gives us a little bit of excitement because it's been a pretty dull last few days for Scottish football in Europe.
I hope it's no dull in terms of like you've been working with me the last few days, or like.
No, that's been the highlight. That's been the highlight,
Yes.
Michael. The football's been pretty dull, though, especially both games. I don't know if you could pick what one was worse. One was just a terrible game of football, and then one was just a one-sided contest.
Score predictions, Mikey, for the Aberdeen game first.
I was initially coming into this thinking FCSB would win, but I actually didn't know how poor they've been domestically. So I'll go with the Scottish side tonight. I'll go 1-0 Aberdeen. I do hold a bit of faith in them to go away and get the job done.
Ethan?
I'm going with 2-1 Aberdeen after extra time.
What about Hibs over Warsaw, Ethan?
Hibs, I'm gonna go with Hibs to win 1-0 on the night and then win on penalties. So both Scottish clubs to go through. Very ambitious, but they're still in the ties, and why not?
The answer to that, Graham, is let me think about this now. No. Mikey, what about you?
I really don't know. I think this is the one where I've really pondered over whether Hibs are going to get the job done or it'll be one of those heartbreaking nights, because I don't. The one thing I'm pretty sure it won't be is a hammering either way. I think it'll be a tight game tonight. I mean, I did say that about the Rangers game last night, so I hope I'm not wrong on that front. But I do think that. Do you know what? I'm going to go with Hibs. I'm going to go with Hibs to win, and if I'm wrong, then so be it. I'm going to go 2-0 Hibs on the night.
2-0 Hibs. There you go. Good luck to both teams tonight. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. It's the Scottish Football Zone. We're up to 31 subscribers, so we at least want maybe 40 or 50 or millions of folk watching us as well, and signing up to our new Twitter feed as well. The details is at the top. Thanks to Ethan. Thanks to Mikey. And good to have you back on the show, by the way. And we'll be back again, Mikey, and Ethan and myself at 10 o'clock to look back at the Aberdeen and the Hibs games in Europe tonight. And hopefully it's a better night than last night and the night before. It couldn't get any worse, could it?
You're watching the Scottish Football Zone with all the build-up and reactions.